Fresh news with Fernando Tatis Jr., the former White Sox prospect way back then for Jake Peavy, right? But yeah, got suspended for 80 games for some, I guess, banned substances or PEDs. Pat, want to hear what are your thoughts on Fernando Tatis, about the suspension, about everything, kind of what he's been going through right now, and how does this, you think, affect the Padres?
What a bummer for the Padres. I mean, as a baseball club, because you're sitting dead in the middle of a playoff hunt here. You've got good positioning in the playoffs. Probably won't win the division, but knowing that Fernando Tatis is on his way, possibly at the end of this month or maybe into September, and what a boost it would have gave that team with Machado and the newly acquired Juan Soto. They've got a really nice starting pitching staff, some other really good hitters too. It's just like, I feel terrible for those players, for their manager, for their GM, that unfortunately the guy you extended for 13 years at $300+ million has just decided to make a really selfish decision and put himself out for the next 80 games. So that'll take effect. It already did, and it'll bleed into next year too. So it just definitely sucks for all of them. And it was nice to hear guys like Mike Clevenger, Joe Musgrove, even AJ Preller, the GM, kind of speak out about his lack of maturity and his lack of awareness and just respect for them as players and people inside that organization, because flat out this guy cheated. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. His dad, Fernando Tatis Sr., played in the majors for over 15 seasons. He was actually rumored to have taken some sort of PEDs back in his time. He never got caught on any sort of list, so I don't want to put that out there as any sort of fake news or anything like that. But just in general, if you've got a dad who played in the major leagues, you should know firsthand all of the issues that could come around any sort of substances you're putting in your body, number one. Number two, every single baseball club has a medical staff, a training staff that prescribe drugs to these players, whether it's pain relievers, any sort of prescription drugs that they may have to take. That all goes through the team, and that gets approved through the team, and every player knows that. And Fernando knows that better than any other player because his dad played in the pros too, and his dad knows that too. And the problem is when it comes down to contracts, the CBA protects players who take steroids from having any sort of other provisions that would allow their contract to be voided or allow them to receive more monetary fines or games outside of what the MLB establishes. And that's been a players association priority for a long time, because they don't want to say, hey, we don't want to give MLB the authority to run a false test and then damage the image or career of a player that gets a false test or something like that. So there's been all sorts of pushback from the players over time about the penalties for steroids and what happens. So if you look at this kid, he's already got his money. It's in the bag. He has nothing to lose, and he's actually playing on his rookie deal right now. His mass extension doesn't even start until after his rookie deal is complete. So he only loses $6 million in this whole thing when he's making $300+ million over the life of his contract. I mean, it's a la Deshaun Watson with getting 200 guaranteed and having to pay a $5 million fine for harassing 25+ women. So it's just like, I don't know. I have zero sympathy for this guy. He said he took Clostebol, for some ringworm that he had. And then his dad came out and said that he had some sort of hair, at the top of his head type itch that he was trying to relieve. So like, family, get your story straight. Like, communicate with one another, because I mean, you're the only people that can back each other up, and even you guys don't have your stories straight. He's coming out today, real somber type expression. He's apologizing to his country. It's just like this, it's like, let me go barf for a second in a bucket and come back and I'll listen to the rest of your speech. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this guy also kicked off his year by getting in a couple of motorcycle accidents. One that he actually, broke his wrist through, and then another one that he had to he had to remind himself which motorcycle accident when he was asked by Preller about the accident preseason. So I was like, this guy's gotten multiple motorcycle accidents after signing this mass extension. I mean, he shows absolutely no sign of being a leader. I'd be so nervous about the next 12 years with this guy. I mean, I legitimately would just seriously go into this offseason putting out feelers to the entire league and just seeing what the offers are. And I might just take the best offer because, I mean, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but he's kind of a loose cannon. He comes off as very selfish, very immature, and at the end of the day, you got to be worried about stuff like this happening over the course of time. And you also got to evaluate, like, what will his performance be like if he's always been on some sort of PEDs and he just never got caught? Like, what kind of player is he for real? Like, we don't really know if this has always been a part of his his makeup. So those are my thoughts. Wayne, would love to hear what you think.
I mean, you touched base on a lot of, I guess, my thoughts there, but yeah, was it 14-year, $340 million is the contract. Like, hire a chauffeur. You don't need to be doing motorcycles. Yeah, like, have a list or work with your actual team doctors, or have somebody that is in conjuncture with everything that's happening in terms of banned substances. Like, these are things that you do as a highly paid professional in any job that you're doing, whether you're the best paid janitor in the world versus one of the highest paid Major League Baseball players in the world too. So that's what you sign up for if you are a professional player and playing at a high level and getting the money. So it's just one of those things. So yeah, I think it's just he's young. I think this is a reason why a lot of teams normally don't give these large contracts to just young, either NBA or MLB talents. Why there is like those rookie deals and such. You look at people like with Jay Williams early in his career getting that motorcycle accident, and he's even admitted, like, yeah, man, I was just immature, like, going through life. I thought I was indestructible. Maybe Tatis is going through that same kind of ordeal. So, and hey, look, I get you're young, and I wouldn't know what I would do if I was 23 and going to be $340 million richer and everything. So it is definitely hard to say, like, oh, I would definitely act differently. Maybe I would go the Derek Jeter route, right? Just be like a guy that's very methodical about what he says and how he acts. Easier said than done, right? So with all that being said, yeah, he's just kind of deserving what's I guess coming his way. Yeah, he's not going to be with the Padres until next year. So it is a good thing that they did load up on Soto, who has 3 years, I think, on his contract, so the remainder of this year and 2 other years. So we'll eventually see 2 years of Soto and Tatis. Granted, nobody gets traded or anything like that. So yeah, I guess there is some prospects, but it definitely hurts the prospects of Tatis or the Padres winning a World Series this year. Not to say, I think Kim, I think is the shortstop, is terrible. He's actually has some pretty decent numbers, but he's nowhere on that Tatis level. So it's hard. It's bad for the Padres. Who knows? Maybe he does have a come to Jesus moment, and gets a chauffeur and coordinates his training staff on substances he can use, and this is like, yeah, a moment for him to kind of recollect or get his life together with regards to all those things that I guess we discussed. So but if that's not the case, then it's kind of like the whole Kyler Murray thing with was it they had a clause in his contract to watch film, apparently. Maybe now it's like it ought to be some sort of a thing for maybe it is going to be more of a thing on clauses like that for a lot of these younger professional athletes if they are 23 years old and getting 14 year-long contracts. So but yeah, overall it's just not good, not good for anybody, I think, what's occurred. So
yeah, and it hurts the game. I mean, it hurts Major League Baseball and their PR and their fans' perception, because again, we're just coming off of the Houston Astros cheating scandal, among the Boston Red Sox cheating scandal, among rumors of the Yankees scandal as well during that time period. We've gone through the steroid era. And this is your most marketable player next to Shohei Ohtani, next to possibly Mike Trout. I mean, it's like this guy's on all the commercials, just loved his energy coming out, of the gate for his career, putting up insane numbers, albeit with injuries. It was like, what a fun guy to kind of follow. I mean, he just has a ton of charisma, can play multiple positions. You can speak pretty well in English, as well as kind of catering to a Latino fan base. It's just, again, like, I don't know. I feel like baseball doesn't do itself favors because they don't enforce enough of what needs to be enforced at this point, from a cheating or a, PED usage standpoint. It's like, these are black guys you've already, incurred and have gone through. Like, can you do something to, figure this whole situation out? And I like your point on the rookie contracts because, I think we talked a lot about the White Sox and, don't have to go deep into it, but if we look at the guys that we've extended, like an Eloy, a Luis Robert, Yohan Moncada, like, we've shelled out some money to some really young guys. And, some of them act like, in my opinion, like their shit don't stink. Like they're wearing, multicolored gear on top of their unis with gold, gold chains and, buttons all the way down to their stomachs and stuff. Like, I'm not trying to be the old man here, but in the same sense, I'm like, these guys like need to like clean it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just need to like, just get into the game a little bit more, show us why you're worth all that money. And I think when you give it out too early, some of that incentive just goes away. Like they're sitting back, like, I don't really have to push myself for another 5 years until I'm due for free agency. So thanks for the cash. And, I have boatloads of talent, but I just have no drive anymore. And, it's crazy because for the Atlanta Braves, we watched, them do the same things with Acuna and Albies, and now they're doing it with Austin Riley and Matt Olson, and they just extended Michael Harris. And it's like, for some reason, those guys all gel, and those guys are all like pushing themselves, and like they're playing at like all-star, superstar type levels. And it's like, damn, man, I wish we had that. And, it's a good question to pose. Like, is it worth extending a guy that young? Like, what kind of culture you need to have around your organization? Like, what kind of coaches you need to have in place? Like, who's your front office staff? Like, are there other layers to what the Braves do versus the White Sox versus the Padres? And like, they're all good questions, but yeah, I'm just disappointed that this again has happened, and it feels like the door is open for more of this to happen as long as these contracts are all guaranteed and these guys can just sit in the hole and use PEDs and lose a couple mil here and there on their multi-$100 million contracts. And it's like, okay, well, I'm getting a lot of attention when I do put up my numbers and you guys don't catch me.
Yeah, no, I like how you brought the White Sox in it for sure. Cause I think you got to look at leadership, who's running the places here, whether it's the manager, or goes higher up from there, the hitting coaches, for whatever reason, like there's definitely all this talk about like, how much does La Russa contribute to the White Sox failure here, right? Whether it's these decisions on keeping players in or out or any adjustments like that versus also like, does he own the clubhouse or is he like, is he contributing positively in the clubhouse? Is he keeping these guys accountable and making sure that they're, being disciplined in that sense? Because like, usually when you have a performance of like, with Moncada, like he was like betting like under 200 for a lot of the season, definitely had some injuries here and there, but like, come on, like he's supposed to be one of our best players. So yeah, like what is happening, I think, with the White Sox is definitely, you can definitely put a lot on the leadership, but they kind of copied, or maybe it's more so the Braves copied what the White Sox are doing, but they're just succeeding at it. They're just doing it better. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with the culture that they're building around with these players. So, yeah, I think there's got to be some, I think for any organization to strive or win, kind of having somebody to, keep people in check, if you will, where, yeah, you can have fun. You can, like you look at Phil Jackson, what he did with the Bulls, like, he had somebody like Rodman, and then obviously like, yeah, someone as bigger, larger than life with Michael Jordan, had all these people and all these personas and all these egos, but was able to navigate all that, be like, okay, guys, let's focus. Let's, he had his Zen type of techniques, for people just to, I guess, ease down, so they feel like they didn't have to like do anything too crazy that would jeopardize the team. So, yeah, like I think that's what the White Sox need. Maybe that's I don't know too much about the Braves manager, their management, but maybe they do have some sort of like structure in place there to keep some of the younger people in check and more discipline in that sense, and having that more nurturing type of atmosphere. So yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what Tatis is doing. I don't know the management there, how they're treating this whole situation, but it sounds like there's a lot of disappointment. So I'm glad there's a lot of that. It's like that. This is not acceptable, man. Like, we need you, and you're letting everybody down. So at least I think I'm thankful for that. And hopefully I think for Tatis and for baseball's sake that he does come back and has his head on straight. So.
Yeah. I'll plug David Sampson of Nothing Personal with CBS Sports. He did a great job of covering his views on the Fernando Tatis situation. If you're out there and you want to listen to kind of insights from a guy who used to be a president of a baseball organization, he was that for the Miami Marlins. He was a GM for the Montreal Expos. So he's been around the game. He knows he knows Fernando Tatis pretty well, the senior version. He knows what Fernando Tatis Jr. is going through right now. And no, it was good to listen to. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot at play when it comes to PEDs and these guys. And hopefully there's just the game and the MLB Players Association come together and kind of rethink some of these rules and provisions and contracts, because it's turning into black eyes for their own sport. And it's going to do them more harm in the long run than it will hurt them in the short run with any sort of PED fines or suspensions or anything else like that. So